Hello and welcome to another episode of the M42 Adventures Podcast. I am your host, Rick Trimmer, and today we are going to be talking with Ryan Michler. I actually recorded this podcast a few weeks ago, to be honest, while we were in Africa. We recorded it on location. It's actually already been released on his podcast, Order a Man. We had a couple in the hopper that we wanted to get out before this one, so this episode is coming out today, and we recorded it a few weeks ago while we were in Africa, South Africa, at the Buffelspan Lodge, and just an absolute amazing experience. I actually just got off a phone call 15 minutes ago, and we are planning next year. We're going to have 16 spots, and we've already got 10 of them sold. The response has been amazing. I can't say enough about it. I am going back for sure. I'm excited for you to hear this one. This one's a cool on-location conversation with my buddy Ryan Michler, part owner of M42 Adventures. So let's jump into it.
So what's up, man? This is the coolest place we've ever done, at least the coolest place I've ever done a podcast.
Yeah, for me, for sure. I'm new to this, so I'm only like a dozen deep, but this is definitely going to be hard to beat.
We're sitting in the lodge in South Africa, which we've been here for 4 or 5 days now.
In the lodge, yeah.
Yeah, so this has been a really cool adventure.
It's been cool. I was excited, Brecken, we were out in the field yesterday, and we were talking about how cool this is, and he says, this is the coolest hunt I've ever done.
Yeah, I mean, how could you not like being in Africa? I didn't really know what to expect, though. I was telling him, he's like, well, what about this and what about that? I'm like, I don't know, I didn't ask any questions, because I try to do these types of things, whether it's a hunt or any adventure that we might go on without, knowing what you need to know, but without a whole lot of expectations, because then I think having those expectations sometimes ruins the experience, because you expect it to be one thing and it ends up being something completely different and maybe doesn't meet those expectations.
Absolutely. I think a lot of people do that. You try to control it, or like you said, expectations. You have what you think it's going to be, and if it's different, it may not be better or worse, but if it's not what you're thinking, you just assume it's worse.
Yeah.
So I'm the same way. I come into things like this. You got to have the basics, what to pack,
right?
Safety and stuff like that. But as far as when I get here, it's just, what are we doing?
Yeah.
Let them, this is their world. And that's one thing that I love about travel. We come here and it's like, what are we eating? We're eating what they eat, we're opened up to their world. And I love that.
Well, I think a lot of people have this, and I've been this way too, this element of control, where they want to control every little aspect of every little thing. And I found, even just over the past 2 or 3 years, letting go of control, not completely where you put yourself in harm's way or you do something dumb, but letting go of control to the point where you can just enjoy it or roll with the punches. I'm still not great at that. I still like things the way I like them, but I am trying to be more aware of just let it roll. Just see what happens.
Yeah, and I think the thing with me with traveling for the last 7-8 years, I've planned everything. With me and Gina, I plan our flights, our VRBOs, where we're gonna go, the route, rental cars, everything. And the thing that's so nice for me about this is they have it all planned. For me to just land, and there's a guy holding a sign that says my family name.
I know. I don't think I've ever had that.
I haven't. I don't. Yeah. And I'm like, dude,
I always thought that was for rich people when I was a kid. Like, I'd go to the airports and I always saw people's names. I'm like, I want that someday.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I thought it was reserved for wealthy people or the elite or somebody I was never going to be.
And so I think that's what has been really special for me and Gina about this is, travel's taken care of, your food's taken care of. And so that's what's been really good for us, bringing kids, bringing all of our boys. It's just been seamless,
Yeah.
There's been not hardly any hiccups at all.
Well, we should tell people because we kind of jumped ahead a little bit, but we should tell people what this is what we're even doing. Yeah. So why don't you talk about it? Because you're really the one who put this together, this adventure that we're on.
Yeah.
Over a 2-week period. I'll be here with my son for a week. You're going to be here for 2 weeks with another group coming in, but tell them like what we're experiencing right now.
Yeah, so basically, again, been traveling for the last 7-8 years, and coming to the part where my kids are getting old enough where they need to start going to school and having, playing sports and stuff like that. So last fall, I started chatting with you just a little bit that I have this idea for a business. And basically the concept is just trying to get people out. I've been traveling for, these years, and people envy that. They do.
Yeah.
They naturally do,
people
right?
want to go out and do the same
Yeah,
things
you want
that
to have
see other people
freedom and
doing.
you want to go see the world. That's a very common top of the bucket list type deal. But they don't know how to do it.
Mhm.
They're just so scared. Well, I know when I first left, when we booked our first trip, it was to Normandy.
Mm.
And I bought a one-way ticket for me and my family of 4 at the time.
Why just one way?
Because I just knew we were going for 2 or 3 years.
And you didn't know like how long you were going to go for?
No.
What? But see, I think that's the kind of thing that people, because that's hard for me to wrap my head around.
Yeah, it was hard for me.
So why do that? Like, what is it? What?
So I sold my construction business,
Mhm.
and I was like, I want to go travel, and I have enough money for a couple of years for sure. And so I just trying to fix the sounds.
Yeah. For people that are listening,
Yeah.
we're not in like our controlled studio that we normally are. So I think there's a coffee machine or a
Refrigerator or
refrigerator
something.
running in the back.
Yeah,
and
probably the ice machine filling up or
it's-
something.
So, and there might be other noises, people coming in and out,
Yeah,
but it's
yeah,
the deal.
yeah. We're out in the field, so
Kind
yeah. So yeah, when I did that, me and Gina just said, hey, we want to go. We're gonna leave for 2 to 3 years. And my first stop was Normandy. I just love veterans. You're a veteran, those have always been my heroes. And so I just wanted to go there, and pay respect to those people who gave us, fought for our freedom and other countries' freedom. So went out and again, I had all those, I was nervous. It was all scary. I look back at that time and it's funny because I look back at then 7, 8 years ago and who I was, and now it's nothing.
Right.
It's just, night and day difference of how I travel. Now for me to jump on a plane and come to Africa, I literally packed the morning before we came here. Didn't even start until the morning before we flew out here. Family of 5 for 2 weeks. And
probably a lot of that just has to do with you guys have done it for so long.
yeah, there's people living here. They have stores, they have deodorant, they have toothpaste. I think people try to pack everything into their luggage thinking I got to bring all of this. And, if you forget your contact solution or, your underwear,
Right.
there's a store. 9 out of 10 times there's a store somewhere. So, yeah. So anyway, long story short, I wanted people to experience what I've experienced. And, I know people are hesitant and nervous. And so I thought, man, if I could put these together to where it's controlled, almost like a travel agent, right? Really, like a booking agent, but go into the depth of, experiencing the culture. When somebody books a flight for you, you want to go to Costa Rica, they're like, all right, here's your flights.
Here's the cheapest you can get. Here's
your
time.
hotel.
Oh, yeah,
have a
that's
good
what I mean.
time. So these are experiences that we're going to bring. Like I said, we've got 10 people here on this week. You're the headliner.
Well, explain what we're doing here this week, because that's really explain what this is.
So we're in Africa.
Yep.
We're in South Africa. It's an African experience. I didn't want it to be just a hunt. We have, half the people that bought tickets are non-hunters. So we've got photo safari, we've got a helicopter ride, we're going to go visit an orphanage, Order Man donated a bunch of money. So basically this is a hunt. It's centered around hunting.
Yeah.
Right. Because it's Africa and we're at a hunting lodge, but it's an experience. I want people to come and experience Africa and experience the culture and eat the food. And then beyond that, you're the headliner and come spend time with you and listen to your firesides and all the things that you're known for about being a good father and your movement.
I think the coolest thing about something like this is it takes out the guesswork. And you said something, you were talking about stepping outside of your comfort zone, the fear that people have. Like, that's what I've noticed with a lot of the guys that tune into what we're doing is they want to do stuff like this. They'd love to go to South Africa and hunt, or they'd love to go to Costa Rica and surf, or they'd love to go on whatever their dream vacation or trip is. But what do you think keeps people from doing that? I kind of try to think about it in my own life. Like, there's been things that I've been afraid of. Obviously, financial restrictions has been an issue in the past. I can't really fathom why anybody outside of maybe some financial or time constraints, right? Busy men. Outside of that, if you want to do something and you have the means to be able to do it, it's wild to me that people will make shit up as an excuse not to go live their lives.
Absolutely. I think everybody, I've read a lot of books on the end of your life and regrets and things like that. And most people think they have more time. I have more time, Actually, Woody's sitting here, right, in our little makeshift studio, and he wasn't going to come. I says, Woody, you have the money. You're in a financial spot where you can afford this now. You're a part owner of this company. You should come go. And he says, I'll go next year. And I said, no. I says, no, you're going to come. You're going to come. What if you don't get next year?
Yeah.
What if? I'm one of those guys that instead of saying, I think I can go next year, it's like, I think I can't. I just flip it.
That's interesting.
Yeah. And it's like, I hope I can, but, maybe something will happen that makes it to where I can. And if I can right now, I'm going to jump.
Right.
And he did. And I asked him a couple days ago, I says, how's it going? He says, I'm loving it. This is amazing, And so.
And he got his first African animal today.
Just cool. Just got his first animal, and something you'll never forget. You'll never remember the money. That's one thing that I've noticed is I've spent a lot of money traveling, and I never remember, in the moment you're like, oh, that was an expensive meal, or that was an expensive VRBO. 3 years later, I'm like, yeah, the south of France was amazing.
Right.
I couldn't tell you at all how much it cost me. So that's one thing I've learned, and I try to tell people. That's where, I think you should learn from people that are ahead of you. That's how I got into travel, is I started calling people saying, how do I do this? And it wasn't quite as popular 7-8 years ago. There wasn't all the travel accounts and stuff that there is now. It's a lot easier. But reach out to somebody that's ahead of you. And I says to Woody, dude, you're not going to regret this. I promise. And he won't. I know he won't. I haven't even talked to him about that, but once you get out there and you do it, he's going to get to the end of his life and be like, I'm glad I did that Africa trip. I'm glad I went to Alaska. I'm glad I guarantee he's not going to say, I wish I would have worked more.
Right.
We know that. And I don't understand why people don't hear it. It's just, I don't get it.
I don't know. I think, like you said, I think part of it is that they think they have more time. They think, like he said, like next year, and I've said that too, next year, what if you don't have it? And then I don't know if it's just fear of, I don't know. I can't wrap. It's hard for me to wrap. And I know you're more adventurous than I am, but like getting outside of your comfort zone, maybe it's an ego thing, where people are like, well, I don't want it to fail. I don't want to look bad. I don't want it to go south. I don't want something to go wrong. And some of those are valid. If you're going to a foreign country with your family, like there's things that can go wrong. There's things that can go wrong if you're driving them to your daughter's dance recital. But now you're talking about going to a whole other country, and then there's always the rumors and the dangers that you see online about, is this country safe? But yeah, I just wish more people would step outside of their comfort zone and just take a few risks, calculated, right? You don't have to blow up the bank or, put yourself in harm's way or some compromising position, but yeah, just go experience life. The other cool thing about it is you find out things you love. A mutual friend of ours, Colin Cottrell, he took me on my very first hunt. Wayne McIntosh says he took me on his first hunt.
You have photos. You have photo proof.
Photo proof that Wayne was a very close second.
He was.
So we'll give him an honorable mention today if he's listening.
Yeah. Because he's mad about that.
He's mad. I know he's mad.
Oh yeah.
Because every time I say Colin took me, he gets mad about
behind your back. He's like, Colin this, Colin that. He's like, funny. I took him turkey hunting. Like, I don't know, bro. I don't.
He did take me turkey hunting. Anyways, between those two, we'll give them all credit.
Right.
They got me into hunting, and then here we are 8-ish years later, 8.5 years later, and I'm here with my oldest son. He killed a water buck and an impala. I killed a kudu and a wildebeest. And this is not just something I enjoy. This is hunting, and now is like ingrained into us as part of our life between the 4 or 5 or 6 hunts that I go on every single year. But you're only going to learn that if you go out and do something different.
100%.
But nobody does anything different.
Yeah, I think you get in your lane and you just stick with it. And a lot of it is your friends. I have a lot of buddies that I grew up with, and I talk about this a lot on my podcast is, I just defaulted to that. If you don't know, any different, and they like golf, they like gambling, they like some of this stuff. And I'm like, I don't really like that, but I love them. Yeah. And I do love them. But when I started signing up, you brought me on my first, I've hunted my whole life, but my first men's hunt.
Yeah, like group type hunt with a bunch of buddies.
You called me about Hawaii. And I had plans to go to Alaska to rearrange my whole schedule, but I knew, I literally went to Gina and I says, hey, we're supposed to fly to Alaska on Friday with our entire family, but I want to change that and go to Hawaii with Ryan, my buddy. And do you have a problem with that? But I says, Ryan's running around with these cool people and I want to meet them. And came out, and now look, I'm good friends with Matt.
Yep.
Right? Scott Davis. I mean, Brandon Lilly. He was just on my podcast a few days ago. And I'm drawn more to that. I love my other friends, but I haven't hung out with my other friends for a year or two. I haven't. And it's not that I don't love them, but this is my scene. I like this. Those guys would want to golf. I want to hunt.
Yeah. I think it's important you think about, and a lot of people aren't with their friendship, a lot of men in particular. Like if they look at their friends, it usually consists of high school buddies, maybe college buddies. It consists of people, coworkers, and neighbors and family. And that's it.
That's it.
Which may or may not be good. I'm not saying that's wrong.
Yeah, just
it's all done by default, and it's just proximity. So whoever's closest to me, they're my friend now. It's like, that's good that you can make friends that way, but also, is that somebody who should be in your friend circle? And I think you should have, I hate to break it down like this because it sounds pretentious, but you need to have tiers. Like, this person's my coworker. We can be friendly. We can go out after work and grab a drink or go to the game or whatever, right? This person's my family. So we do family reunions, we do family activities together. And then you might have this other group over here, which is really deliberate and intentional. Like, I personally go out of my way to reach out to these guys. I invite them on the things that I'm doing because they can serve me and I know I can serve them. But that requires a lot more diligence and effort than, oh yeah, that's the guy that works in the cubicle next to me.
Yeah, I use this story a lot. So my older brother, he's 6 years older than me. And growing up, your older brother is your hero. It's just naturally. He's just always ahead of you. He can, do things before you can. He can drive before you can. He can, so you look up to him. And so my whole life, I'm chasing my older brother around just naturally. And I get into like my mid 30s, like older. And I would send him business books and all these different types of things. And one day I called him up and says, hey man, did you like those books I've been sending you for a couple of years? And he's like, bro, I don't care about business books. I like fantasy. And we'd go on vacation and he'd want to go do this, want to go do that. And I just never thought about it.
Right.
Just like you said, I defaulted that he was my hero.
Right.
And not that he's not, if he listens to this, whatever. But now I sat there and looked at it and I'm like, do me and my brother have the same beliefs and same...
Are you aligned that way?
Are we aligned? And
Right.
We're really not. We have some similar things, but he's not somebody that I could necessarily come and hang out with for 2 weeks in Africa. We're just a little bit different. And my mom hates that. My mom talks to me about it and she's like, why aren't you hanging out more with your brother? And I'm like, we're not really kindred spirits. And she's like, but he's your brother. And I'm like, that's the problem.
Well, and you can do brotherly things together.
Yeah, exactly.
No
I'm like, we go do this and we go do that, and it's all good, but it's just not the same as this person, But I think my mom can't understand it.
Well, there's also this weird, I don't know if it's weird, but there's this sense of loyalty that a lot of men have. I mean, it's interesting your mom's saying that, right? I mean, that makes sense. She's your mom, so she cares about both of you guys. But a lot of men will just keep hanging out with their buddies, even though they know, like, this is not going to be a guy that's going to help me go to the next level.
Exactly.
But they'll do it because they're like, oh, him and I have been through some hard times when we were juniors in high school. It's like, well, that's fine. Like, and I appreciate that you still care about that person. You still want the best for them. But at some point, like, you don't owe anybody anything.
Absolutely.
And so you can still keep that person as a friend, but maybe think about, and some guys will say, well, what happens if I get these other friends over here and then I just kick these guys to the curb? No, of course not. Like I said, you can still go do the family reunion. You can still go get a drink if you want after the game or after the long work day or whatever. But then take time to be deliberate, intentional about who you're spending time with.
Absolutely.
And hand select the people you're spending time with.
Absolutely. Yeah. You look at the hunts we go on now together, right? We hunt 3 or 4 times a year now together.
Yeah.
And we're very selective of who we bring and who's in that circle, because you get a guy in there that just doesn't click, or,
whatever. And it's like, it takes away.
Oh, for sure. Distraction.
You can feel it instantly,
Yeah.
you know? And I don't think enough men live that way to where if you went and thought, this is my hunting group for a month, you know, all these people, you know, add to it, or do they take away? You're very selective of that, because you don't want to be in Hawaii for 2 weeks with somebody that is an asshole.
Totally. And the amount of time and money that you spend in being there, you're like, man, if I'm going to take time away from my family or spend a couple of grand,
spend all this money,
like,
time, it's got to be fun. It's got to be good.
Yeah.
And I think that if you live that way in your day-to-day lives, it would just be better, you know? So.
Yeah, it is interesting that so many men default to that, but I don't know why I picked up on that early. Maybe it had to do with the podcast. Like, I saw that I wanted to grow the podcast. And so I had to be really clear about continuing to elevate the caliber of the people that are on my podcast. And then every once in a while I go back to the people who aren't like you, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. I've been on once.
But no, like, and then you have to actually be deliberate, clear, and intentional about what exactly you want, what exactly you're looking for. You know, it's the same thing with a romantic relationship. There's things that you're attracted to.
Yep.
There's things that you're repulsed by in behaviors and looks and appearance and everything, style.
Mm-hmm.
So you're not, as a man, you wouldn't just go on a date with whoever because it happens to be a woman.
And then marry her.
Right.
Because she was nice.
Because she was nice to you on your first date.
Exactly.
No, you're going to be very selective about your companion, I would hope.
I have a buddy in San Diego. We talked about this the other day. You know, he's been single for 44 years.
Mm.
And he says, man, I'm so glad I'm single. I see all these people going through divorce and what a nightmare. And I says, dude, I'm happy. You know, and he says, well, you're an exception. And I says, yeah, I am. And he says, why do you think you are? And I says, dude, I was engaged, you know Tiffany.
Yeah.
Before Gina. And called it off because I started looking at it and I'm like, wait a minute, this is long term, hopefully.
Right.
And
ideally, right.
This could be a problem. It was one of the hardest things I ever did. But I look back on it and I tell my boys, you know, what you do and who you marry are probably going to be the two most important things you do, you know, because that's where you're going to spend most of your time. So be very selective. And I think that's the same with friendship, you know. And so, yeah, man, I think that's you know, that's a lot what M42 is, and what we're building together is trying to get people out, experiencing things, and you're going to be similarly like-minded. You know, you're not going to come out to an African safari if you don't think that's going to be something you'd enjoy.
Yeah,
right?
Because of the time and commitment and everything.
Yeah,
else.
so you're going to find these people that are like-minded, and then I tell everybody, you meet 10 people, you're going to probably not click with 9 of them.
Yeah.
I just went to one of your events in Pine Valley.
Mm-hmm.
Todd was there, right? And you know, a few guys I couldn't connect with.
Right. Which is fine.
Yeah, which is fine. It's like, I'm not going to force it. It just wasn't natural, and I don't, you know. But a couple of them, I'm like, dude, you're a good person, and I'd like to stay in touch. And I have. And so, yeah, Todd, was one of them. I met him there.
It's like we said, sometimes you make mistakes. So.
Yeah. Well, that's a perfect example of, you know, put yourself out there. And Todd came, I went, we met, and now we're in Africa together. You know, and that's what I think's beautiful about this is you can go and do these experiences, and if you go with the right mindset, like you said, no expectations, but just I'm gonna have fun.
Yeah.
Then it has enriched my life tremendously. So I want to thank you for that first invite.
Yeah.
You know, Sam backed out, right? Couldn't make it.
And
I tell Sam all the time.
Sam invited me to Minnesota.
Oh, is that how you met Sam?
That's how I know. Well, Sam came to one of our events.
Okay.
Order a Man events.
Okay.
And we connected. We hit it off.
Okay.
Him and Wayne too.
Okay.
And then he called me. He's like, hey, man, I've got a place in Minnesota.
Before Hawaii?
Yeah, before Hawaii.
Oh, wow.
Years before Hawaii.
I didn't know that. Okay.
And he's like, hey, I've got a friend in Minnesota, Matt.
That's how you met Matt?
Yeah.
Wow.
And so we went out to Minnesota with Sam because
cool.
he came to one of my events.
Yeah.
This is how it works. But I also think there's an element of intentionality behind it.
Yeah.
And that's what a lot of people don't really. Well, here's one thing I've heard them say to you, and people have said to me is, I wish I could have what you have.
Oh, 100%.
Or I wish I could do what you do. It's like, well, you can. Yeah. I was talking with somebody the other day about new vehicles. Oh, it was somebody in our Facebook group. The guy's like, I've got this older vehicle. It keeps breaking down. I need a truck for work. I think he's in construction of some sort. And he's like, I've got enough to pay cash for it, but also my work requires a lot of capital at once. So I'd like to preserve that capital and maybe lease or get a
Make
loan.
payments, yeah.
Right. And so what should I do? That was his question.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, look, it sounds like you're being smart about it. You're being intentional about it. You're not just randomly doing it. You
You're
have
doing
the
the
right
math.
thoughts. Like you're thinking about it correctly. The only thing I would say is don't go out and buy the $90,000 truck.
100%.
Go buy the $30,000 truck.
Yeah.
It'll still do all the same thing. You might need to replace it a few years earlier, but you'll preserve your capital and you'll still have a nice truck. Get the job done. That's the smart play. But some people have, like I said, that $90,000 beautiful truck. They'll drive it around. They'll get sick of it after the luster's worn off.
Couple years.
Yeah, if
Take
that.
a hit of 50%.
Right. And then they'll cry about it. They've got this $900 payment for the next 7 years,
Yep.
which they can finance for now, which is wild on a car when the
Yeah.
average turnaround's like 3 or 4.
Right.
And then they'll cry about it like, oh, I wish I'd go to Africa. Well, dude, you're spending $900 a month. Let's say $1,000 a month. That's $12,000 in a year.
Yeah.
You'd spend half that going on an African safari and hunting trip. So you can do that, but you made a wrong decision.
Yep.
And that's what most people do. They just make poor decisions.
Yeah, they want everybody, well, I shouldn't say everybody, but most people want that quick fix. They think, like you said, with physical, it's like, I want the 6-pack. And it's like, well, then I know what it takes to have a 6-pack. I'm just not, I'm not doing it.
Hey guys, I wanted to step away from this conversation real quick with Ryan and talk to you about a couple things we have going on. Obviously, this is an Africa episode. We're talking about South Africa and our hunt down there. And we are going to be announcing our experiences for next year. We've wrapped up all of our experiences this year. We did, I think, 4 experiences overall. And next year, we're going to be doing 7 experiences. We're going to try to drop one probably every week, maybe every couple weeks. We're not sure, just depending on how the selling of them goes. But Africa will be one of the first couple. Sign up for the Genesis is the first thing, our online community. That's where we're going to be talking to people first about these and giving them first right of refusal. Second will be the newsletter and then social media. So if you wanted to go on any of these adventures, Alaska, Africa, Costa Rica, Hawaii, Utah, get in and be paying attention because I think they're going to go pretty quick from what we're seeing already from the interest. So appreciate you guys listening. Hopefully you find this episode educational and exciting. We want you to come out on these experiences, not just be listening to the podcast. Come join us. Come sign up. It will change your life. But let's jump back into this conversation with Ryan. Thank you.
But to be upset at somebody with a 6-pack is ridiculous.
Right.
It's like they're doing it, so, and that's what I think is if I want a 6-pack, I'll go find somebody with a 6-pack and say, help me. And so that's what I encourage people to do is find a mentor, find a coach, find somebody that's ahead of you in life, that's doing what you want to do.
How did you do that? Because a lot of guys will say like, that's a question I get a lot is like, how do you find a mentor? It's a great question because people are being serious about finding people ahead of them, like you're saying. But a lot of the times they don't feel like they have anything to offer a potential mentor, which is probably true because that person's in the position they're in for a reason. And I mean, my philosophy has always just been, you pay for it. Just pay for coaching. But I know you've had mentors that you haven't paid.
I'm paid for anyway.
Right. So how did you approach those people and how did you have those conversations? And did you ever feel like maybe not doing that because you felt like you didn't have value to add to their lives?
I didn't expect to add any value to their lives. That never crossed my mind until you said it. I've never thought I'm going to add value to their lives. I just thought, and I think I did add value to their lives.
I'm sure of it. They wouldn't do it if that weren't the case.
Yeah, and I didn't realize it because a lot of people who are ahead of you, they want to see you succeed, And so it depends on what you want to be good at, but I just find that person. Somebody that knows somebody. So my first one was financial. I didn't care about my fitness or traveling the world or anything like that. I was broke. I lost everything in the recession. And I needed money, and I knew I had made a lot of mistakes with. I had the $70,000 Dodge with the $900 payment and all the payments. And when I lost everything, it wasn't by choice. It was the recession, and I thought I got to change. I can't do this. And so I started asking around and trying to find a person that was financially successful that I could get to.
Right.
I'm not going to call up Elon Musk, right? So I started asking around, and my dad was like, hey, Bill Burke, my old partner's self-made, worth hundreds of millions. You should call him. And called him a couple times, didn't answer his phone, sent him emails or whatever, texts. And finally, one time I said, listen, Bill, I know you're busy, because they're hard to get a hold of.
Of course.
You're
they've got
busy.
other things. They're probably getting hit up all the time.
They're getting hit up all the time. And I just said, hey, listen, I don't know what else to do. This is what I'm looking for. I need somebody to help me. If I could come down to Vegas, buy you lunch, I'll buy the lunch. I'll buy you lunch and give me an hour of your time. I'll prepare some questions. I'll drive to you 2 hours away.
Mm-hmm.
And can I do that? Would you mind that? And he finally responded back and says, yeah, you're your dad's son. I love your dad.
Yeah.
Come on down.
Which is fine to use some of that.
I didn't care.
Leverage some of that.
I didn't care. Yeah. Whatever got me in the door.
You're not using it or taking advantage of it. You're just leveraging connections.
Mm-hmm. And I remember in the email, I says, I promise you, I will not ask you for money. I says, I'm not here to ask you for a loan or something like that.
Yeah, he probably gets.
And when I sat down with him, I says, hey, thanks for willing to meet with me. And he says, don't you ask me for money.
Oh, he said that?
Because he gets hit up all the time.
I'm sure.
And I says, I won't. I'm not here for that. I wrote like 30 questions and just started rattling them off. He says, he was cool. He's like, what do you want to talk about? And I'm like, I actually prepared 30 questions.
Which probably impressed him.
He says, oh, cool, awesome. I says, I don't want to waste your time. I have 60 minutes. Can we just get into it? And he's like, let's go. And he says, actually, I'm going to bring in my business partner. Had him sit down. I think his name is Brad or something. He says, Brad, have a seat. Maybe you can help me answer some of these questions. He's a very successful person. And I started asking questions, and he was just all ears. And then I took everything he said and I went home and did it.
Yeah, that's the key, right?
And that's what people don't realize is I went home and it took me, I remember I was working in my business, not on it, was the biggest thing he said. He says, you're an employee. At the time I had a construction company. I was working in the wood mill 8 hours a day, and then I'd do my books at night. And he says, are you a wood mill guy? Are you a laborer? Are you a CEO? And I'm like, I don't know. I don't have any money to hire, all the problems, all the excuses. And he says, he was just one of those guys where he says, no, I don't believe in excuses. I'm not one of the victim mentality guys, he says. There's victims who everything happens to.
Mm-hmm.
And he says, I don't believe in that. And so I went home, did it. It took me 18 months to get out of the wood shop, a year and a half. And it took me about 5 years to quote unquote retire. And I never talked to him for 5 years. Didn't talk to him. I just went to work on his assignments.
Right.
And I remember about 6 months into my travel, I was in southern France, and I wrote him an email and I says, hey, Bill, I just wanted to let you know, thank you for meeting with me 4.5 years ago. This is what I've done. I've got out of my business. I've grown it from, I've 10x'd it. I'd actually about 20x'd it in yearly sales. Anyway, did all the things he had recommended. And he sent me an email back and he says, Rick, I could not be more grateful that you took my advice. What a beautiful thing. And
because he probably gets people
wasting his
that
time,
pick his brain all the time, and then they never do.
I do now. People, I get it all the time.
I'm sure.
They come into my office all the time and I try to be an open book.
We've talked about
it.
Where they're like, hey, what about this? What about, you tell them. And it's like, I had a guy, I remember years ago when I was doing financial planning, I had been fairly successful towards the end of my financial planning career. And I had a new guy, he just started working with the office I guess this was before I went and started my own company. But he's like, hey man, can I sit down with you? And same thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, yeah, sure. Like, you're in my office. I see that you're trying to be, he's like, hey, can I just ask you a couple questions? I said, yeah. So we're sitting down and he's like, well, how do you get referrals? And I said, well, this is the language I use, or this is how I ask, or this is how I set it up. And he's like, no, that doesn't work. I tried that. And I kind of, I'm like,
yep.
Okay. So I kind of rolled my eyes and he's like, well, how do you get them to say yes or whatever? And I said, well, here's what I do. Here's the process, and I go through this, and then I go this, and then hopefully that leads to business. And he's like, no, I've been trying that. That doesn't work. And I remember just saying, look, dude, it works. And he's like, it doesn't, I've tried it. I'm like, then you're not doing it right, because it works because I'm doing it and it's working. You came to me for advice. So why? He's like, I just wanted to see if you had any. I said, I do. And I'm giving it to you, and you're making up all sorts of reasons why it won't work for you. So I'm done here, and good luck.
Mm-hmm.
So I left, It's like, there's nothing I can share with you
Yeah.
if you're so close-minded about it.
Yeah.
But people will say that all the time. I see that with guys that I know in the fitness industry. They'll have clients, they'll say, hey, I want to have the 6-pack abs, or I want to lose weight, or I want to deadlift, 500 pounds. And they'll say, okay, great. Here's the food you need to eat.
Mm-hmm.
Here's the times you need to work out. And they'll say, well, I can't work out at that time because, and I can't eat that food because my wife makes me this for dinner. Like, you're a grown man.
Mm-hmm. Then you're not committed.
And that's fine,
Yeah.
but don't pretend that you are, and don't waste other people's time telling them that you're committed.
Yeah.
If all you're going to do is make some BS about why you can't have it.
Yeah, I think that's the most common thing, is they just don't do it. They just don't. Everybody wants the result.
Yeah.
But when you tell them how to do it, they can find a million reasons why it doesn't work. And I understand that, it gets hard. I had setbacks. I was discouraged. It wasn't like it took me 4 or 5 years, it wasn't.
Which I think in the grand scheme of things is short, but probably while you were going through it, didn't
It
feel
felt like
real
forever.
short.
Yeah, it felt like forever,
Yeah.
It felt like you just can't see. It's kind it's like losing weight. You go on a diet and for 30 days you work out and try to eat better and you get on the scale and you're like, I've lost 2 pounds.
Yeah.
Have you seen that clip of that little fat kid that's like playing with his belly and he's like talking to his brother? He's like, why don't I have a 6-pack? And his brother's like, what do you mean? He says, well, I did 5 sit-ups today.
Yeah.
And he's like, that's not how it works,
Exactly, yeah.
But it's just, it's so funny to me because most of the things that are just common sense, people just, it's like, it's so funny to me how it isn't.
Yeah.
It is, but it's like you have to work hard to get, follow your
It's
dreams.
common
But people don't
sense,
do it.
but
You have to diet
people-
to be, have to eat right to
Yeah.
have a 6-pack. Why do we always go the wrong way? Why are people always overweight? Why are they always broke? I guess that's what I'm trying to
Actually,
get to.
I have an answer to that. And so we were walking around in the field today, right? We were chasing zebras and blesbok and everything else. So we're walking around in the field today. And as you're walking around in the field, you see paths, right? So you have all this grassland and this bush and everything else. And then you see paths. And out of the hundreds, if not thousands of animals that are out here, there's very clear paths.
That's funny.
And all of the animals walk those paths. They don't walk everywhere. They follow the other animals that went before them, even days, weeks before.
Yeah.
It's the path of least resistance.
Yeah.
Like we are hardwired as a species, and I think all animals are. If you strip everything else away, we are hardwired to consume as many calories as possible and expend as few as possible.
Yeah.
That ensures our survival.
Yeah.
So in modern times where us being eaten by a lion isn't nearly as significant as it may have been 100 or 1,000 years ago, we still have that same mentality.
Yeah.
So when you say, hey, you can work hard for 10 years and you can become a millionaire, or you can go down to your local 7-Eleven and buy the lottery ticket that's up to $150 million, that's the path of least resistance. Or I guess it's the perceived path of least resistance.
Yeah, because it's not. You're going to lose your money.
Exactly.
You have to work more to buy more lottery tickets.
Exactly.
Yeah, and that, that's one thing that's funny with me is I've got 3 little boys, right? We're going to do a gender reveal out here. See, I think I've got another boy in the oven, but
I don't think so.
Don't you?
I'm thinking
You think I'm going to hit a girl?
I do.
I just don't know, but
We'll see.
that'll be cool. Either way, I'm excited, but I tell my boys all the time, I'm like, you guys are good, man. You guys are good. As long as you have the, hard work, discipline, you're grateful, the competition is so sad to me. That's what I think people think is they see people in our positions and it's a cliche, right? If I can do what you can, if I can do what you can. It's true.
That's why it's a cliche.
Yeah, that's what's so funny about it. It's like, it wasn't necessarily hard. It was just like you always say, consistency. Going to the gym is not difficult. It's not like you come out and you're like every day and you're just can't walk.
Right.
It's just going every day,
go.
and that's what I think I tell my boys. I'm like, if you can do these fundamentals, it's sad to say, but I'm excited for their future. My mom's always like, the future's bad. Look at everybody. And I'm like, that's them. That's the competition. My boys are going to be, my dad always says the horse that wins the race wins by a nose. And I think that's such a good analogy. I do not believe that I am 50 horses ahead of anybody. I believe that I am a foot ahead.
Right.
But that's what this life looks like. You're a foot ahead of people. You're not lapping them.
Well, there's people that are ahead of me that I'm trying to catch up to.
100%,
Yeah.
but they're not lapping you. They've tweaked their shit, their habits, their, whatever they're doing just a little bit. And that's what I don't think people realize is they see our lives and they think, oh, I want to travel the world and, not work. And it's like, you can. And it doesn't take 5 lifetimes and working 1,000 hours a day. And, it's like, you just have to tweak it a little bit. Get rid of the big truck. Get a second job. Save. Bill, my mentor, says it's not what you make, it's what you spend.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. And the other thing that he told me that I loved was there's 2 types of people on earth, those who charge interest and those who pay it.
Mm.
Be the former.
Yeah.
There's just little things that
it's funny that you say like little, I was thinking about it because since we've been out here, I woke up just because my time's all out of whack.
Dude.
Like we leave here.
I see you on Instagram every morning.
Oh,
I get
yeah.
on, it's like Ryan's active, I'm active,
Yep.
Todd's active,
I
and
know.
it's 3 a.m.
So I'll
We're all
come out
messed
at like
up.
4 every day. I've been out here at 4 in the morning.
Yeah.
And I'll do like respond to people and stuff
Yeah.
on Instagram.
Yeah.
I'll
Mhm.
send emails. I'll line stuff up with some of our brotherhood and things
Yep.
like that we're doing.
Yeah.
And I'm out here for maybe an hour working.
Yeah.
Where everybody else will probably go on vacation and they'll forget about all their work. They won't do any of you're looking over here.
We had this talk in Alaska, because just recently, because I've never, ever been the type that goes on vacation and just turns it off.
Right.
I just check in
Yeah,
just a little bit, just to
touch
make sure,
points.
because that little fire on a Monday, if you catch it Monday night, you put it out.
Right.
If you don't touch it until Thursday, the house is burned down. So I agree with you. I agree. Just checking in.
And it's not hard. It's
not
little,
hard.
but it's your life. It's your, like in this case, it's your business.
Mm-hmm.
People say, oh, you should really check out. It's like, well, I don't have the luxury of doing that. Number one. Number two, I don't even want to do that.
Yeah.
Like I'm doing something that I love. I don't have to wake up and like, oh,
yeah,
I got to talk to people today. I got to respond to people who are interested in the things that I'm saying.
Mm-hmm.
Like what a horrible job I have.
Yeah.
Like I'm excited about it.
And
we
we are absolutely blessed in that. But I did do that, and I'm sure you did too.
Everybody
where the
has.
10 years of, I remember walking to the mailbox or my phone ringing after 5 or before 8 in the morning, after 5 p.m. Sick to my stomach. I remember that. I remember walking out to the mailbox thinking, it's bad news.
Yeah.
It's going to be a bill that I can't afford. It's going to be a medical bill that I can't afford. It's going to be, or the phone call is going to be, a client that's mad. I remember that all the time, just being like, and now my phone rings at 7 o'clock at night and I'm like, oh, what's that?
Yeah.
Because it doesn't ring as much. And it's usually a family member or a friend,
Well, you have those boundaries in place too,
Yeah.
right?
But I've changed those things. But I think, like you said, if what I feel like is if you're grinding, and I think that's what people need to do, is if you make it a lifestyle and you grind and you save and you invest, you can take your the government requested start working at 18, retire at 65, and you can condense that down from what's that, 40 years to 20. It's 15 if you're smart. And the way I look at it is, if you buy that big truck or you don't answer your phone on vacation, those are setbacks. It may not feel like a lot, but it could be a month or 60 days. Or if you buy a $90,000 car, it could be a 2-year setback.
Or longer.
Or longer. You buy a huge house. I have friends that have huge houses that it's like, that's a 30-year setback. It's a 30-year mortgage that you can't afford. So if you limit those, and that's what I think is people don't understand is I know we're kind of getting into a lot of financial stuff, but anyway, I'll sum it up. But it's like, make smart decisions and get passive income.
Right.
Get investments. Like you just said today, you're looking at another rental property. And you can start small with,
Which, if you think about it, that's funny because I rent right now.
I know.
I own houses.
And
I rent, but I'll buy another house to rent before I buy a house that I'm going to live in.
And that is smart, because then the house that you rent, I haven't owned a house since the recession. I had a house for a few years, lost it in the recession. I bought my property, my ranch or whatever, just out of passion. But yeah, if you can have 8 rental properties and those 8 rental properties are paying for the payment on your car, the payment on your rent,
or just
you're
paying
free.
that property
You're
down.
free.
I don't have. If
you buy a house, your roots are.
Yeah.
If you buy a house, you just put roots down.
Yeah.
And that's the new, Grant Cardone and stuff. It's like, don't buy a house, rent it. Because now you're lean and mean and you can adjust and, and I rent now, and you've seen my house. It's my wife's parents' house. It's very small.
Yeah, it's modest place.
Very modest, but I can do whatever I want in the world anytime. I can go into work anytime,
I think that's one thing a lot of people don't really consider is that there's sacrifices to be made because we live in this like amazing time in human history where you can have everything.
Yeah.
I mean, you can't think about being here at this place,
Crazy.
We got clean water in South Africa, we got clean water. We've got electricity.
Swimming pool.
We've got a swimming pool outside. We've got the firearms and the ammunition we want. We've got the food that we need. Like there's food sitting on there that'll actually probably go to waste, some of that.
Right. Yeah.
It's like.
Yeah. Excess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so we live right now where you just feel like you can have everything and nobody wants to make any sacrifices.
They want
for
both.
anything. Yeah.
They want the 6-pack and eat the donut.
And the cake. Yep.
They want the huge house and the vacations. And it's like, well, maybe there's some people who have achieved that and good for them. That's awesome. But that was one thing that I got a lot from people was they were surprised because I grinded. I worked for 7 years, almost every single day for 12 hours a day, for 7 years. And when I got enough money and enough investment properties to where I was like, if I'm smart, I don't have to ever work again. And I shouldn't. It's getting better, with my new investments. But people don't realize that was, I lost my train of thought. I don't know where I was going with that. I had something good, but it's gone.
It'll come back to you.
Yeah.
When we're hunting.
Yeah. In an hour. But yeah.
I don't know. I guess I was going to ask, if there was a mindset that you have, like an all-encompassing mindset. Like one thing you said earlier was, instead of saying I have next year, I don't have next year. To me, that's a mindset. If there was a mindset that you had that was just kind of all-encompassing about how you view life in general, how would you distill that down?
Well, we talked about this with Todd. He said he has a word, and I love that. He says his men's community has a word, and they all have a word for the year. And I think mine for life would be gratitude. I just have always, thankfully, I've always just been thankful. Yeah, it's funny. That's a funny little way to say it, but I really am. I come here and I was, lost everything in the recession, pawning TVs, trying to feed my family. And now we're here at this place. And it's like, wow, I'm thankful. Yeah. I don't think I'd necessarily deserve this. I earned it, but I'm thankful that it happened. And I'm grateful that it happened. And I think as long as you can, we're going to an orphanage, right? We went and bought a whole ton of supplies. We're going to take them here in a couple days to these kids. And I'm taking my 3 boys. And I'm trying to teach them to be thankful and grateful.
Grateful for, yeah.
You could have been born them as easy as you were born this, or that, and so I see all these things where, it just constantly on a daily basis, we're out here hunting, right? And we have our guides and we have our PHs and we have the trackers, right? And we know the pay scales and stuff. And he's sitting right behind me, and I kept asking him for a drink, and I just always think, I want him to know that I notice him, it's like, I'm not better than you.
No.
I'm not. I don't believe that. I will look him in the eye and think, I'm not better than you. I'm not, because I have more money or, different color skin or whatever, it's like, no, I think he's a human and he's beautiful and he's good. He's an amazing tracker and they're so kind, right?
They are very generous and kind.
Like they're just there to help.
Right.
And so I think if you go through life grateful, it can only be good. If you think you deserve something or you think you're better than somebody, you're just looking at disappointment, I think, eventually somehow. So,
well, why don't you
what
tell
would
the
be
guys?
yours?
Mine was, I was thinking about it, and this may have changed over the past several years, but this idea of let's find out, like a let's find out mentality. I don't know what life, anything.
Yeah, I love that.
Like, I don't know what life's going to hold. I don't know if that's going to work. I don't know if I should do this. I don't know if I'll enjoy that. It's like,
you just went
find out.
skydiving. You just went skydiving. I know you were terrified. And I says, why are you doing it then? And you're like, because I'm trying new things.
Yeah.
Did you regret it?
No. I'll probably never do it again, but I didn't regret it.
Yeah, it's crazy, huh?
It's crazy.
It's surreal.
It
feels like a
is.
dream.
It's so weird.
But that's how I look at life is, you know, I like you said, I weigh the odds and I'm very calculated. I'm like, I love stats.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, 11 people a year die from skydiving. You know, chances are it's not going to be me and Zion.
I'm glad
this.
you didn't tell me that
Yeah,
before.
yeah. But you think there's millions of jumps.
I know.
So you go out and you do it and it works out and it's like, man, I can check that off. I just did, you know, something that most people don't dare do.
Yeah.
And so I encourage people, whatever it is, you know, whether it's an M42 event or an Order of Man event, you know, sign up, get out of your comfort zone.
I know. Go do something.
Meet people.
Life.
Yeah, it's like I want to grab them. And I think that's how Bill was, is he wants to say, this is a beautiful life. And that's what I'm telling people. You know.
How long? Oh, yeah, let's wrap it up.
Yeah. So I think get out there, experience it, you know, whether it's with us, somebody else.
Tell the guys how to connect with you, and then we'll close it out. We got more hunting to do.
Yeah,
today.
so we're M42Adventures.com, M42 Adventures on social media, M42 Adventures Podcast. Mine's onelife.solive on Instagram if you want to follow me personally. I've tried to change it to Rick Trimmer, but I can't figure that out because I'm not good at it. But anyway, yeah, I'd love to connect with you.
Cool.
And yeah.
We'll sync it all up.
Yeah.
Let's go do some more hunting.
Let's go, brother.
All right, so there you have it. My conversation with Ryan. As you can hear, we're there. It was exciting. It was amazing. And whenever I get home from a trip, either one of two things happens: is I think, okay, that was amazing, and I'm glad I did it, one and done, or I think, man, I've got to get back there. And with Africa, that's one of those places where I want to get back to. My wife actually asked me a few days ago, hey, what's going on with Africa? Are we going back? And I says, I'm working on it. And she says, I hope so. We've been to, as you guys know, almost 70 countries, traveling full time for the last 8 years. And that's in my top 3 probably of experiences. So absolutely amazing. We got to go to the orphanage, give back, went to some schools and gave back, some of the local workers and gave back, all the people who donated money and product we appreciate. Got to feed a lot of people through the animals that we harvested, made memories with my sons. My boys each ended up shooting. My oldest shot 3 animals. My youngest shot 1 animal. First animals they've ever killed. And just an all-around life-changing experience for all of us. If you get a chance, sign up for the newsletter, sign up for the Genesis, get into those, watch our social media, because we are going to be dropping Africa here in the next week or 2. And I'm telling you right now, we've already got it 60, 70% sold out just from word of mouth. So appreciate Ryan taking the time to do that with me. Hope you enjoyed it, and we'll catch you on the next one. Have a good Friday.